Okay, so the next part of the Death Battle 10-year anniversary review is uh, Batman versus Captain America. This was an interesting fight. Um, I didn't really like how the animation played off because Batman was kind of getting dominated throughout the beginning of the fight, and they concluded that he was slightly more skilled than Captain America. So I think that was just a bad way to depict that. You kind of implied the opposite there. With that said, they concluded that Batman basically has enough gadgets and gear and tactics to outmaneuver Captain America. I do agree. I do agree with that. Batman is way more adaptable. The fight does show him kind of cheating in the regard, but at the same time, he does rely on stealth a lot. He does rely on ambushing his opponents. So that is just part of his fighting style. So while it could classify as cheating, um, at the same time, death battles don't really have that many actual rules. It would be unfair to have them in a boxing ring, for instance, because Batman he has a gliding cape. You know, why put him in this scenario if he can't use his gliding cape? Um, so so basically, Captain America does have superhuman physique and could have used that to overpower Batman, but it would not have been really enough to guarantee an instant kill against someone who wears far superior body armor. Um, and as they pointed out, once Cap loses his shield, he becomes far more vulnerable. He does have his own variety of fighting styles, but his primary fighting style relies on the shield. So, and I have seen his shield be used as a booby trap by his opponents in the same way that Batman did. So that made sense. So yeah, moving on. Terminator versus RoboCop. Pretty straightforward. Terminator is kind of a mass-produced robot, while RoboCop is a more high-budget um, robot. While he could classify as a prototype, he is definitely designed to be more tanky than even Terminator. RoboCop definitely feels more like a comic book character with the extremes that his mechanical body can endure. While Terminator is designed to be far more realistic, minus the time travel. Um, the Terminator post-apocalypse scenario with the robotic technologies that Skynet use is grounded in reality. Even liquid metal is a real thing. I'm only applying this to the first and second Terminator films because no one cares about the others. If you do, that's fine. But I'm like, the general public knows that the first two are the Terminator films. Anyways, so yeah, it was pretty straightforward in regards to the quality of the mechanical bodies. Um, Intelligence, they're identical in the sense that they both have a computer brain, but yeah, Robocop is still human to a degree where he doesn't have the same glitches that the Terminator has. Terminator has clear glitches in his AI that makes him sometimes reckless and predictable. He is so focused on logic that he has almost no creativity beyond that. So that can be a factor that Robocop could exploit a slight tactical edge in that regard. But also look at the scenario that they're in that Terminator has to go back in time. And so he's using present day weapons. Robocop exists in a bad future, but still in a future where technology has evolved slightly, but significantly to the point where he has that sniper rifle that is an anti-tank gun that also destroyed a mech in a single shot. The Et-209 is a very small mech, but the fact that he was able to destroy it very easily with a sniper rifle that has multiple rounds in it, because it does have magazine clip. Yeah, Terminator had really no option against that, other than his plasma rifle, which, as I showed, RoboCop had a potential to survive. So yeah. Pokemon Battle Royale, they described the results of this so well that I really can't add anything more onto it. Other than Charizard is the more popular of the trio, but that doesn't automatically make him the winner. So, yeah, not much else to say. Iron Man versus Lex Luthor. So, I do agree with this one. The symbiote suit can drain Lex's power, so that's really something he's not designed to put up with. And what he is designed for is Superman, and what the Hulkbuster is designed for is Hulk. So they're basically identical in their concept, that they are made of like high-tech metal and other technologies, and maxed out in terms of their bulk to a degree where they are able to go toe-to-toe with this godlike being. But if Hulk was at full, but it is shown that if Hulk is at full rage, if he's World Breaker Hulk, he can rip apart even the Hulkbuster. And if Superman is unrestrained and not hit by the kryptonite, then he could rip apart the war suit like tissue paper. In fact, even in the cases where Lex Luthor is flashing kryptonite beams in his face, Superman still has enough strength to rip it apart like tissue paper. So because of that, because they're both designed to face a godlike creature, but will still lose to them if they go all out, you can't really compare them in that manner. You can only say that their physiques are extreme enough to match them when they're restrained or not at full power, but not extreme enough to go beyond that, and that's very vague. So dictating if the war suit is stronger than a Hulkbuster is really up in the air. It's hard to say. And obviously, this is a giant war suit I'm talking about, not the more slimmed down one that really does look like an Iron Man, but without the helmet. As I pointed out, Lex has his head protected by a force field, so Lex's force field does give him an advantage against Iron Man. But that's basically it. Iron Man does have enough adaptability, like I said. But the point I want to bring is that if this was just regular Iron Man suit versus giant war suit, like what this thumbnail is implying, I still think Iron Man had a chance to win. I mean, he still did win, but like if he didn't have the other suits, I still think he had a chance of winning, because Ironmonger, the main antagonist of the first Iron Man film, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but basically the first Iron Man film that anyone would call a genuine, iconic, classical Iron Man film. That main antagonist was Ironmonger, and he basically made his own Iron Man suit that was similar to Hulkbuster, in that it was very big and bulky. In Lex's war suit, the giant war suit, is basically the Hulkbuster, but it's like a Superman buster. So the fact that Iron Man is able to fight Ironmonger, which is a character that's actually very similar to Lex Luthor, you know, the billionaire capitalist who makes his own mech suit. The fact that Iron Man was able to defeat Ironmonger in a fair fight, not just in the movie, but throughout comics. In the movie, he didn't fight fair to defeat him, but in the comics he did. But the fact that Iron Man does have options to defeat a physically superior mech suit does show that his adaptability can be enough to defeat even something as extreme as Lex's warsuit as a potential. But I mean, it's really hard to gauge the limitations of these characters. Not much else to say though. So moving on, Kratos versus Spawn. Pretty straightforward. Spawn is more supernatural than the tangible, surprisingly mortal gods that Kratos fights. So, yes. And also, Spawn has dealt with similar things that Kratos has. But the fact that Spawn has superior endurance arguably is more maneuverable and tactical. Yeah, that can be a decisive factor. Vegeta versus Shadow. Pretty straightforward. Super Shadow cannot last long enough to outlast even Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta. But I do have to mention that I didn't like how they depicted Vegeta punching the moon to send it to Earth. It's unlikely he would have done that. He could just use a key attack if he wanted to destroy the planet. And I don't even think he... And at that point, he wasn't physically that strong, which they later confirmed in the first Goku vs. Superman, that Vegeta was nowhere near that strong. And so the host was just assuming at that point that maybe he could pull off a stunt like that. But also, like, Vegeta has a family on Earth, so I don't think he would have been motivated to risk destroying Earth in regards of it would kill his family, unless he just says, "Oh, I'm just gonna go and get the Dragon Balls Namek to revive him." Like, pff. But yeah, basically, well, I didn't like how the battle played out. This was early death battle, so I can't criticize them too much. They were just starting out. They were just understanding what's going on. Kirby versus Majin Buu, a very controversial fight, and I know why. Buu has a very weird healing factor that makes him very difficult to decisively kill. And the execution of the battle was directed very awkwardly. Kirby was way out of character. The finishing move didn't really make a lot of sense and didn't feel like a fair win. And the fact that it's hard to really say what Kirby has in an arsenal that would definitively, without a doubt, kill Majin Buu. But at the same time, it's hard to say what Majin Buu would have that would definitively defeat Kirby. Kirby's also extremely inconsistent with his limitations. But looking at his maximum limitations, you do have a Goku versus Superman scenario, and that Kirby is just very extreme, even compared to a Dragon Ball Z character. Unlike Superman, though, Kirby does have physical limitations, so they're just really absurd. And I have seen later depictions of Kirby that have really ironed down this idea that he can be really absurd in his physique. But yeah, it's a controversial fight, and I understand why, because it's really hard to definitively say who would win. But also, I didn't like the animation. Ryu versus Scorpion. I hated the conclusion. They said the Scorpion was decisively immortal and thus invincible. That doesn't seem fair. Especially since even after gaining this undead physique, Scorpion can still be defeated in battle. He has never really relied on this immortality to win a fight against a otherwise superior opponent. I thought the Scorpion would win, though. And the reason being is that Scorpion is a ninja assassin, and so has weapons and gear that are far more lethal than what Ryu would have normally at his disposal. But that was before I realized this Ryu had a super form. Not Dark Ryu. Dark Ryu is a double-edged sword, kind of like Akuma. Um, so I wouldn't call him superior than base Ryu. It's more like his stats are adjusted to be more aggressive, but that doesn't make him the superior Ryu. That nothingness form, however, does sound like something that would overpower Scorpion. Either way, I honestly don't care enough about this kind of matchup because I wanted, I think it was Liu Kang to fight Ryu because that seemed like a more fitting matchup. Because I know Scorpion is a mascot of Mortal Kombat, but so is Liu Kang. I think that since Liu Kang is so similar to Ryu, yet somewhat different, it would have been a better fight. But at the same time, Liu Kang doesn't really have a lot of super forms that I'm aware of, so I don't know if he would even stand a chance against Nothingness Ryu. But whatever. Basically spitballing at this point. Master Chief is a Doom guy. Basically, I do agree with it. Exactly what they said. Master Chief is more adaptable, but still has enough firepower to match Doom guy's firepower. With a new Doom, I don't know if that's the case, but whatever. Not much else to say. Pokemon vs. Digimon. Before I, okay, so I agree with the conclusion. I do like Pokemon more than Digimon, but I do have to admit that Digimon can go more extreme with, I don't want to say power creep or power fantasy, but definitely in regards of they have more evolutions to their Digimon throughout the series as a whole. So not just Tai and his Agumon, but other characters as well. And so as a result of that, with all these Digi evolving forms, you're just bound to just keep on getting more forms until you surpass the current adversary you're facing. So this is kind of similar to how Goku has all these new Super Saiyan forms, and that's just keeps on pushing everything further and further in a weird sort of power creep. I mean, no one even remembers Super Saiyan 2 Goku because it's so similar looking to Super Saiyan 1. Super Saiyan 3 Goku is now outdated, and this just keeps on going on for Goku. And this does kind of go on with Digimon as well. At least with the season, they start off with the Digimon in their weakest states, normally as their rookie forms. So for quite a while, Agumon is just Agumon, and occasionally evolves into Greymon. Digivolves into Greymon. And as time goes by, they get more and more forms to basically because of power creep. For Pokemon, Mega Evolutions were introduced rather late in the franchise. Relatively speaking, I mean, this episode is 5 years old. But basically, Pokemon doesn't have that same kind of power creep involving how their Pokemon evolve. Because it's always been you get the first form or the first Pokemon, and maybe they evolve once or twice, and maybe they have a Mega, or nowadays it's Gigantamax or Dynamax. And beyond that, that's basically the ceiling. And that is because they're a video game. They have to consider the competitive ceiling in regards of, just gameplay. They can't make things so absurd that all of the characters from a previous generation now are outdated. That might be a case with legendary Pokemon to some extent, but even something like Mewtwo, who is an old school Pokemon, even without him going with his Mega form, is still a very viable Pokemon in terms of even in regards to the anime, um, but also in the games. So that's the mentality I see with this. I do have to address a sharp criticism that people have with the fight. That Tai abruptly assaulted Red. Um, you can call him Ash, but it's clearly depicted as Red, which is the video game name of Ash. Um, they're essentially basically identical characters, just in a different setting. But anyways, Tai straight up assaulted um, Red. If you actually look at the episode, you can see that Tai is. Let me see if I can bring it up. But basically, Tai has always been depicted as being hot-headed and being, emotionally attached to his friends, of course. And Digimon is far more life and death than Pokemon. There are cases in Pokemon where characters die or can die, but that is very infrequent. In Digimon, characters do die. That is partially because they do get reincarnated, as from what I understand. But it still is considered tragic enough to be like a death. And so the stakes are much higher, especially since when a Digimon dies, their trainer can't just immediately bring them back. They kind of have to wait for them to be reincarnated or something. But yeah, I mean, look at this dislike ratio, and I can understand. Tai seems like he was cheating by straight up assaulting Red out of nowhere when it looked like he was losing. But look at this scene. Tai is assaulting a kaiju-sized Digimon. Okay, he's not like Godzilla-sized kaiju, but he is larger than an elephant. Tai is charging at him with a steel pole. And yeah, obviously he's going to get his butt kicked if Agumon didn't save the day. But this is the argument I'm bringing. Tai is reckless and aggressive. So much so that he has actually attacked other Digimon trainers. I don't have the exact terminology in my head, but yeah, I still consider this a valid argument that Tai could just attack Red, and Red would not be prepared for that. But I do have to make this clear. I do not think that is a decisive reason as to why Agumon wins the fight. Agumon wins the fight because War Greymon not only is physically superior than even Mega Charizard, but maybe even Gigantamax Charizard. I don't think Gigantamax Charizard in 3 turns can defeat someone as extreme as War Greymon. But War Greymon is still extreme enough to not only win a fair fight, but keep in mind that, again, his claws are designed to fight dragons. He's basically using Dragon Claw against Charizard X, who I believe is a dragon type Pokemon. So yeah, he has all the advantages in a fair fight. So Tai did not need to fight Red like that. And I do sympathize with those who, hate the result as a result of that. But keep in mind, the monsters are still fighting. And so saying that the trainers fighting each other would dictate who wins, that's not true. Okay, next, Wolverine versus Raiden. I agree with the fight. Wolverine cannot survive severe brain damage or destruction of his brain. And I mean, Raiden does have the weapon that is able to exploit one of the weaknesses of adamantium. I have heard a lot of people discuss about a Wolverine death battle before, and I've consistently seen the argument being Wolverine is essentially invincible, so he's automatically going to win. So it is nice to see a character who is pitted up against him, who is able to engage in a fair fight to some degree. They did point out that the fight could drag on long enough for Wolverine to outlast Raiden, but Raiden is still anime sword fighter, and for some reason, like Roronoa Zoro, anime sword fighters have extreme endurance, including against stabbing weapons. That's just anime for you. It's a video game character, but he basically is an anime character. Overall, I agree with the result. I was siding with Wolverine, but I accepted his loss. Guma vs. Koopa, a bit of a weird fight. But at the same time, the Koopa does have traits that the Goomba doesn't, but not really anything obviously decisive to guarantee that he would win. It's kind of a weird fight in general, so I'm not looking that deep into it. Joker vs. Sweet Tooth. This is a bit weird fight because it starts out in a car battle, and Joker's using the Joker Mobile, which is a vehicle that he rarely actually uses. So it's obvious that he has a experience disadvantage when Sweet Tooth is a Twisted Metal champion. So that alone shows just how radically different they are in terms of being tank fighters, like car tank fighters. It's a very weird setup in that regard. They both have cars that are essentially tanks. With that said, so I do agree with the result that Sweet Tooth would win in a car fight, but that Joker would win on foot. Having these two fight on foot is a bit weird because they could just shoot each other to death, in theory. But yeah, Joker is not about conventional fighting. He is about his intelligence. Joker might be insane, but he is also intelligent, and that makes him far more dangerous than other Batman characters who are far more insane, or just about as insane. When I mean they're more insane than Joker, I mean they're more dysfunctionally insane. Joker is able to be intelligent enough to formulate complex and efficient plans. The characters that I consider more insane than Joker do not have the same kind of finesse in his strategies and tactics. And yeah, it's really how you use the weapons that you have that can really dictate a fight. And they did point out Sweet Tooth doesn't have any noticeable intelligence, and Joker has been able to match Batman in terms of tactics and general intelligence. So there you have that. Flash versus Quicksilver. So yeah, I do agree with the result. Quicksilver is fast, but Flash is speed. Flash is speed. He has the Speed Force powering him. The Speed Force dictates speed in his universe, and as seen with the Wally West versus Sonic fight, he could just steal Quicksilver's speed at any time in the fight, and he doesn't even need to, because Flash's speed has no obvious limitations. It can really be as absurd as it can be in manners similar to Superman, which Flash is canonically faster than Superman, albeit slightly. But I think that is because the Speed Force is speed, and so no matter how fast Superman is, Flash will basically copy Superman's speed or steal Superman's speed and use it for his own. Um, Next is Dante vs Bayonetta. Not much else to actually say about this fight that the Death Battle host really said. Basically, Dante has far superior endurance, and Bayonetta does not. And the traits otherwise were almost identical, but Dante just had a little bit more going for him. Hulk vs Doomsday. Even considering Immortal Hulk, Doomsday still wins this because he has adapted to a point where he is no longer something that you can punch or rip apart. And Doomsday is still way powerful enough to kill the Hulk in a fair fight. Even before the adaptations, you can argue that Doomsday could still go toe to toe with Immortal Hulk, um, Immortal Will Breaker Hulk. It is a bit more debatable at that point if you're talking about Doomsday when he initially lands on Earth and hasn't adapted to the multiple fights he has engaged with the Justice League with. Um, but now that he has, and we are addressing these characters at their best, and we also have to address Super Doomsday, who has like this flaming aura around him that destroys everything nearby, and now has like a toxic disease that could use to infect Hulk, and other like more advanced adaptation powers or something like that. Doomsday just has more going for him other than being very strong and having a healing factor and having superhuman durability. So that adaptation power is very broken. And it kind of has to be because Doomsday is single-handedly fighting the Justice League. You need to have a character that is extreme enough to fight multiple gods at once. And unfortunately, Hulk needs to build up his rage in order to compete with something like that. So yeah, I do agree with the results. Even if we consider Immortal Hulk, Immortal Hulk can still die from brain damage, from what I understand. So Doomsday can just go with that. And as for Immortal Hulk constantly reviving, Doomsday might be able to adapt to just being immune to the Hulk if their fight goes on long enough. Because Doomsday can still adapt during a fight. And that's even depicted in the fight, which is weird because Doomsday is already immune to sound-based attacks. So the fact that they had to restart that in the fight, I don't know why they did it, but I basically do. I know why they did it. They did it to show that Doomsday can fight within a battle, can adapt within a battle and within a fight. So Doomsday can adapt within a fight. So if we got Immortal Hulk, it might just be delaying. It might just be prolonging the inevitable. Gara versus Toph, highly controversial fight, and I understand why. They based Toph's victory around a very obscure ability that is not guaranteed to affect Gara's sand. Because Gara's using chakra and Toph is using chi. And while these are very similar, they are also different in some ways. What many are saying is that even with Toph's ability to change sand into rock, which is an element that Gara cannot control, because canonically, and this is shown multiple times, Gara has to grind rock into sand in order to use it. So for so the whole fight is around Toph turning the sand into rock, so that Gara doesn't have enough sand to overpower Toph. And can Ki do that to sand that's infused with chakra when that chakra is far stronger than what Toph's chi is? And that's hard to say. So it's a debatable fight. I consider Death Battle's argument to be valid. But these are still fictional characters, and the counter arguments are actually really strong. So it's whatever you say, really. This is a fight that I am not going to decisively support, but I'm also not going to decisively say it's wrong. It's debatable, and that really does show with the response that it received. Link versus Cloud. This is a bit of an interesting fight because Link relies on magical gear to grant him the majority of his superhuman physique. And there are multiple Zelda games. For Cloud, there is Final Fantasy VII, which is the decisive source for his limitations and traits. Not saying it's his only source, it's a decisive source, because that's what you think about when you think of Final Fantasy VII. You think about Cloud, because he's the protagonist. So when you think about Cloud, you think about Final Fantasy VII, that's the source. So you can look at that game primarily to look at Cloud's limitations. For Link, it's not that clear because there's just so many games that he's in. There's also various forms that Link has that wasn't even mentioned in this fight, or at least used in the fight, like deity mask Link, I think. And so Link has a lot of magical gear and on hand, and so he might have enough gear available to counter anything that Cloud could really do against him, even though Cloud, in theory, is physically superior to Link in every category. But at the same time, again, Link does have magical gear that can increase his own physique. So that is the counter argument against that. So in a manner similar to the previous Death Battle, I don't know who wins. There's too many factors to consider because Link's arsenal is just way too big. And so what you include and what you don't include really decides on who wins. And finally, I will talk about Thanos versus Darkseid. And it is pretty straightforward. That Darkseid, as extreme as he is, can still be defeated in a fair fight. Thanos already has a Power Stone, which grants the user infinite power, which includes infinite strength and infinite durability. And it's magical, so it is, in theory, able to resist even the Omega Beams, potentially, which you do see in a fight. You do see him use a barrier to block the Omega Beams. And that is a valid argument to make, that the Infinity Stone can block the Omega Beams to some extent. I don't know how. I don't know. You know, both these characters are just so extreme. The saying that one is clearly stronger than the other is hard to really say when you're looking at Avatar Darkseid and Infinity Gauntlet Thanos, especially since both have been inconsistent. But I'm looking at Infinity Gauntlet Thanos as it's the Infinity Gauntlet as an infinite power, and not just with the Power Stone, with all the other traits. So, and with Darkseid, by comparing him to Superman, which is his physical equal, you could definitely make the argument that Darkseid, being a god from a higher dimension, mind you, has really no limitations except when dealing with other godlike characters or characters from higher dimensions. Mr. Spitlick was able to just play around with Darkseid like some sick action figure toy thing. You know, he just destroyed all of Apocalypse and then just trolled Darkseid by giving him a fake, arguably fake, maybe not, piece of paper detailing the anti-life equation. But basically, Avatar Darkseid versus Thanos, as they pointed out, Avatar Darkseid wins. Infinity Gauntlet, though, Thanos has more going on. So it's not about the magnitude of the power, it's what Thanos can do with multiple aspects of that power. So while physically the fight could indeed look equal, Thanos can do things that Darkseid can't. Now, there's a debate over what will affect Darkseid, because Darkseid is a higher dimensional god. I cannot definitively say if the Time Stone can just stop time to allow Thanos to just dominate Darkseid, because Darkseid exists beyond space and time, from our point of view. In regards to the Mind Stone, that's basically matched with the anti-life equation. They both have mind control powers to a absurd extent. But at the same time, you could argue that the Mind Stone gives Thanos unlimited intelligence to a degree that could potentially outsmart Darkseid. And the more you look at it, the more you say that Thanos has enough advantages to overpower Darkseid in ways that are a little bit more unconventional. But as they pointed out, snap him away. And that does the work even with godly characters, to an extent. Some characters, like the One Above All, are immune to the Infinity Gauntlet, and the Infinity Gauntlet, as they showed, does have limitations. And if we are showing Thanos at his best, we do have to show Darkseid at his best. So even though Infinity Gauntlet Thanos most likely would defeat Avatar Darkseid, it would be, and as I point out, it could be a close fight, but Infinity Gauntlet Thanos will still have all the cards. He still won't be able to do anything against true Darkseid. If we look at true Darkseid as this giant cosmic horror that exists on such a large scale that he can crush the multiverse. In that regard, Thanos within his own Marvel universe can't really do anything. All he can do to guarantee that he doesn't lose is to try to do what he did, snap away Darkseids whenever they reappear. But Thanos is hot-headed and egotistical, which is how Darkseid was able to trick him into leaving. But most importantly, Thanos kind of knew that he couldn't just stay there and allow this to happen. He was panicking. Because of course he was panicking. Darkseid showed that he was strong enough to be a threat to even a wielder of the Infinity Gauntlet. And so, with that in mind, Thanos was pushed into a corner. In fact, I've seen some of the comic book panels of Thanos showing off his Infinity Gauntlet. When his power is put into question, he panics. He straight out panics. And it's not really in traditional sense of, I'm gonna lose. It's like, where is my mojo? Why can't I do this? I should be able to do things. Why can't I do this? Come on, do it. Why can't I do it? So, yeah, I got a bit aggressive there, but that's because that's what Thanos thinks like. Yeah, he is just the Mad Titan. some people are like straight up offended when people call Thanos a Mad Titan. That's his actual title, and it's reflected in the comics. He goes mad with power all the time. He goes mad with power every time he gets the Infinity Gauntlet. And sometimes he gets so mad with power while he has the Infinity Gauntlet that that's actually why he discards the Infinity Gauntlet. He like gets sick of the power that he obtains and then just discards it, realizing that it's artificial or that it's not like the true him, and he still can't do everything he wants. I think that was a missed opportunity by the movie depiction of Thanos. But yeah, basically in this death battle fight, you have a character who has full control over a universe, facing a cosmic horror that could destroy the multiverse. I don't want to say that the Infinity Gauntlet is weaker than True Form Darkseid. Because in theory, it still has infinite power. The difference is that Thanos can only control what's in his own universe, or the universe of the Infinity Gauntlet. So, if Darkseid exists above and beyond the universe that Thanos is operating under, then they're the gods of their own worlds. But as I said, Darkseid is not restrained to his dimension. Infinity Gauntlet is restrained to his dimension, and Thanos can be outmaneuvered in that regard. Also, yeah, the Omega Sanction is really scary. Now, I don't fully understand the Omega Sanction because it's from a comic that is very vague and symbolic in its meaning and all that stuff. Oh boy. But from what I understand, you're sent to hell. You're sent to a hell where you are killed for all eternity, tortured for all eternity. That is really effed up, and I honestly hope that Darkseid shows off that Omega Sanction more often, because it can actually make him more threatening. The Omega Beams nowadays just seem to be similar to Superman's heat vision, and that when they hit, they do damage, and not much beyond that. And that kind of sucks because the Omega Beams has magical traits that should be explored. They can disintegrate you. They can send you to the Omega Sanction. They can do other things to like mind control you or send you away to one of Darkseid's work camps on Apocalypse to imprison you. He is basically a space fascist. He's a Hitler. He's a Satan to the Boy Scout Jesus of Superman. So, yeah. So, yeah, basically that's all I have to really say about these two. I still like both characters. They're both real power fantasy characters that seem to be that force that is really hard to fight, but you can still defeat in a way. It's kind of like, don't give up hope. Even if things look bad, I guess the best way to put it is, if things look bad, give it your all. Because giving up is not an option with these two. Definitely not with these two. You do not want to surrender these two. You're better off dying, but not in a way where Darkseid tortures you for all eternity. At least with Thanos, his damage can be undone once his Infinity Gauntlet is taken away from him, which is what happens in the film, which is why, oh no, Spider-Man is dead. Oh no. Like, no, I wasn't feeling that. I knew they could just undo that. Because it's magic. It's the Infinity Gauntlet. You can warp reality with it. Of course, you can revive everyone who's been killed by it. It's magic. You're not going to destroy half the universe and say, oh, well, nothing we can do about it. You're not going to kill half of the Marvel characters with a magical item and say, oh, there's no other magical item, or we can't reuse the old magical item to revive it. It's the same issue with Dragon Balls. They can be used to revive people, so when they die, who cares? Krillin and Chaozu, when they die, who cares? You're just gonna revive them. But yeah, I'm going a bit off topic. So I basically said what I had to. So congratulations to Death Battle for these 10 years. Has been rocky, and I don't agree with all the fights. Obviously, I just and I'm still able to make my own opinions independent from Death Battle's conclusions. I can still say that they have done inaccuracies even today, and I will even look into that in the near future. At least I'm considering it. But at the same time, I do like the show. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to have a civil discussion about. But definitely I've been on Death Battle's forums for a while. And I have left them because of the toxicity of fanboys. Being a fan of something does not make you a fanboy. What a fanboy is that hardcore nerd. It's a more extreme fan. It's like saying that, might as well use Nazis as an example. Why not? Anyone who is a nationalist, anyone who is right or far right, so like politically, anyone who is politically right is not automatically a Nazi. Nazis are very far right and very nationalist to the extent that they are a militaristic, genocidal ideology. So comparing that with fans and fanboys, not all fans are fanboys, but all fanboys are fans. And before anyone becomes PC at me, yes, I understand that fangirls exist, but I'm not ignoring that. Anyways, just have to point that out because it's the 2020s and we have to be PC now, although I get canceled. So I have to make these disclaimers to survive on YouTube without being, attacked. But that's another thing to address. So with fanboys, they're just, not only are they fans, but they are fans that take things too seriously, too radically. To the point where you're having a death battle discussion, or not even a death battle discussion, you're just even talking about your characters. And any kind of criticism, they become defensive to the point where they are harassing, sending death threats, and getting personal in other ways. That is absolutely uncool. I would say it's illegal. Or at least I would want it to be illegal to an extent. Obviously not in a way that limits freedom of speech. Even when cancel culture wants to destroy that. From both the left and the right, the cancel culture exists from all ends. Even moderates might even engage in that. But so basically, I am well aware that the comments of this video could get a bit heated. So this is my statement to anyone who is going to write a comment. Be civil. If you insult me, I can take an insult, but don't expect that to grab my attention. If you want to grab my attention, just put a comment. And if I don't respond, well, don't take that as an offense. Maybe I'm busy. Maybe I didn't realize I got a comment. But most importantly, be civil, be nice. Well, you don't even need to be nice. You can still have a neutral stance. You can even disagree. Feel free to disagree. I am all in for a discussion. But, if you insult me, I'm not one of those snowflakes that's going to have a meltdown because, oh no, someone called me nasty. Oh, boo-hoo. No. But if you're nasty, I'm just gonna ignore you because you're being rude and you're being defensive. And from my own personal experience, having a death battle discussion with these kind of people is a recipe for disaster. I'm also going to limit my comments to about 5 as my limit. If things derail early, then I'm not going to comment anymore. But basically, I don't want the comments to drag on too long because, just get your points across. Don't and we can still have discussion. We can still have a back and forth, but I want to have a limit to that because I have seen death battle discussions that drag on for months. I'm not kidding. And I don't want to put up with that. So, be nasty. I'll ignore you. Harassment against me or anyone else, I will not tolerate. I will, remove your comment, block it, block you maybe. I don't want to put up all of these rules in the sense of me being like authoritarian over my videos. I just want a civil discussion. So, yeah. Another thing is if you have any suggestions for death battles, I'm not really gonna care. There's so many death battles out there that you can literally have anything with anything and say that that's a death battle idea you have. So it's just too much. It's not the kind of discussion I want to have. I want to have discussion about the death battle episodes that have already aired because at least that limits the discussion. Also, don't pit two characters. Well, okay, so maybe don't pit two characters that have not have death battle and ask me who they would win. I'm not really interested in that. But yeah, this has gone on for almost an hour, so I think this is a good time to shut it down. So yeah, let me know what you think, and feel free to chat, be civil, and see you in the next one.